It's a strange term, isn't it? Brainrot. It sounds like something out of a science fiction film, a malady that slowly dissolves one's mind. Yet in 2024, the highly respected Oxford University Press named it their word of the year. This wasn't a decision made lightly. It was a recognition of a creeping cultural phenomenon, a digital sickness that many of us feel but struggle to name. Oxford defines it as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental state from consuming too much trivial or unstimulating material online. It's the feeling you get after an hour of scrolling through an endless feed of bizarre, nonsensical videos, emerging as if from a trance, feeling strangely empty and, well, a little bit dumber. The phrase itself isn't entirely new. It first surfaced in the digital ether around 2007, used by young people on platforms like Twitter to describe the mind-numbing effect of certain reality television shows. But over the years, its usage has exploded, particularly among Generation Z, the first true digital natives. They use it to describe a specific kind of online content that is short, jarring, and often utterly meaningless. It's a self-aware diagnosis of their own media consumption habits. Even Pope Francis, in a poignant speech delivered in 2025 before his passing, warned of this modern affliction, describing it as a danger to be avoided, a spiritual and intellectual decay spreading through our connected world. What we are witnessing is a fundamental shift in how we engage with information. For centuries, knowledge was something to be sought out, studied, and contemplated. Now it's a relentless fire hose aimed directly at our faces, mixing profound truths with utter nonsense. The very nature of social media platforms, designed to hold our attention for as long as possible, has created a fertile breeding ground for this rot. The content becomes more extreme, more ridiculous, and more addictive, simply to keep us hooked. It's a constant barrage of stimulation that leaves little room for quiet reflection or deep thought, leaving our minds feeling overstuffed yet undernourished. This essay will explore the landscape of brain rot. We will look at the specific types of content that define it, from split-screen sludge videos to the strangely satisfying clips of objects being crushed. We'll delve into what this constant stream of low-quality media is doing to our brains, according to neuroscientists. We will also examine the very real-world consequences this can have, the economic forces that drive its creation, and most importantly, what we can do to fight back. Because acknowledging the rot is the first step toward finding the cure and reclaiming the health of our minds in an increasingly noisy digital age. To understand brain rot, you first have to understand the content that causes it. One of the most common forms has been dubbed sludge content. Imagine a video on your screen, but it's split in two. On the top half, someone might be recounting a story or offering some mundane life advice. On the bottom half, something completely unrelated and visually captivating is happening. Perhaps someone is playing the mobile game Subway Surfers, skillfully dodging trains, or maybe a machine is methodically slicing bars of soap. The visual action is designed to be just engaging enough to stop you from scrolling away, holding your attention hostage while the audio drones on. The name sludge is fitting. It's sticky, messy, and hard for your brain to pull away from. Then there is the category of oddly satisfying and destructive content. These are the videos of hydraulic presses crushing everything from bowling balls to alarm clocks, or clips of things being sliced, shredded, or smashed in slow motion. There's a peculiar, almost primal part of our brain that finds this appealing. It can trigger a small release of dopamine, the brain's pleasure chemical, partly through a sense of schadenfreude, a feeling of pleasure derived from seeing something else's misfortune, even if that something is an inanimate object. It's a cheap and easy thrill, a tiny hit of satisfaction that requires absolutely no intellectual effort from the viewer, making it dangerously repeatable. The content also becomes progressively weirder to maintain its grip on our ever-shortening attention spans. This has led to a surge in bizarre, AI-generated videos. You might see a cat with a human face giving a history lesson, or a cast of strange characters with satirical Italian names, like a flying crocodile named Bombardiro Crocodilo that bombs children in Gaza. A shocking blend of political commentary, childlike absurdity, and coded language. This Italian brainrot trend of 2024 perfectly encapsulates the phenomenon. It's nonsensical, visually confusing, and yet strangely compelling, often mixing dark, real-world topics with a surreal and almost playful veneer that makes it hard to process. Another disturbing branch of this is Elsagate, a term for content that specifically targets young children. These videos use algorithms to identify popular characters like Elsa from Frozen or Spider-Man, and then place them in bizarre, violent, or inappropriate situations. A child, drawn in by the familiar face of a beloved hero, is then exposed to disturbing and confusing imagery. This is brain rot in its most predatory form, exploiting the innocence of children and the automation of content platforms to generate views, regardless of the psychological cost. It's a stark reminder that this isn't just harmless fun. It's a digital environment with very few guardrails. When you spend hours passively consuming this type of content, what is actually happening inside your head? According to experts like Dr. Gary Small, a neuroscientist who has studied the effects of technology on the brain, the consequences can be quite physical. He suggests that excessive consumption of brain rot content may accelerate the shrinkage of the cerebral cortex. This is the wrinkled outer layer of your brain, the very part that makes you human. It's responsible for memory, attention, decision-making, and all our higher cognitive functions. A decline in this area means a decline in your ability to think clearly, remember important information, and make sound judgments. The core of the problem lies in the dopamine cycle. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that plays a huge role in motivation and reward. When you do something enjoyable, your brain releases dopamine, which makes you want to do it again. Brain rot content is engineered to provide high, frequent, and incredibly easy bursts of this chemical. Every short, shocking, or funny video is a tiny hit. This trains your brain to expect constant, effortless rewards. Over time, activities that offer a slower, more sustained dopamine release, like reading a book, learning a new skill, or having a deep conversation, can start to feel boring and unrewarding by comparison. This is where the contrast with an activity like reading becomes starkly clear. Reading isn't a passive act of consumption. It's an active, complex mental workout. When you read, you are creating and strengthening neural pathways between many different regions of your brain. Your visual cortex processes the letters, your language centers decipher their meaning, and your memory and logic centers work to build a coherent narrative and connect ideas. It's a slow, deliberate process that builds mental endurance and cognitive flexibility. In contrast, scrolling through a feed of 15-second videos is like mental junk food. It tastes good in the moment, but offers no real nourishment. This constant overstimulation can lead to what is essentially a state of perpetual distraction. Your brain becomes so accustomed to switching focus every few seconds that it struggles to maintain attention on any single task for an extended period. This can manifest as difficulty concentrating at work or in school, an inability to get through a chapter of a book, or even trouble following the plot of a movie. You're not just losing your attention span, you're fundamentally rewiring your brain's ability to engage deeply with the world around you, trading depth for a shallow but endless stream of novelty. To see how this can play out in the extreme, consider the fictional but illustrative case of Tyler Robinson, a scenario imagined to take place on September 10, 2025. Tyler is a 22-year-old who is described as terminally online. He spends most of his waking hours immersed in meme culture and the chaotic world of the gaming platform Discord. He doesn't have a coherent political ideology in the traditional sense. Instead, his worldview is a fragmented collage of internet jokes, gaming references, and the coded, ironic language of the online spaces he inhabits. His reality is filtered through a screen, and his personality is built from the digital detritus he consumes daily. In this chilling scenario, Tyler assassinates a right-wing activist named Charlie Kirk in Utah. The act itself is shocking, but the details are what truly reveal the depth of the brain rot. The bullets he uses are engraved with phrases that would be nonsensical to anyone outside his specific online subcultures. One bullet has the words, "Notices bulges, OWDO." What's this? A sexualized internet meme. Another is etched with the controller inputs for calling in a grenade strike in the popular video game Helldivers 2. A third carries lyrics from Bella Ciao, a song he knows not as an Italian anti-fascist anthem, but as a tune from the video game Far Cry 6. This story, though fictional, powerfully illustrates the danger of a mind saturated with brain rot. Tyler isn't motivated by a structured belief system. He's motivated by a chaotic soup of memes. His actions are a performance, an attempt to translate the absurdity and violence of his online world into the physical one. He sees the world not through a lens of right and wrong, but through a lens of irony, references, and in-jokes. The assassination becomes the ultimate post, a real-life action designed to generate a reaction within his insular digital community, blurring the line between trolling and terrorism. This is the end point of a brain that has lost its ability to distinguish between the trivial and the serious, the meme and the meaning. When a person's entire frame of reference is built from fleeting, context-free snippets of online culture, their moral compass can become hopelessly skewed. They may struggle to form a stable sense of self or a coherent understanding of the world. Tyler's story serves as a dark warning. When our minds are fed a constant diet of meaningless content, our actions can become just as meaningless and potentially just as destructive. So, why do we willingly subject ourselves to this mental onslaught? And really, why is this content so incredibly popular, especially with younger generations? Well, one of the primary drivers is quite simply escapism. For Generation Z, a cohort that, reports unprecedented levels of anxiety and stress about the future, the endless scroll can be a powerful numbing agent. In fact, statistics show that 42% of them have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, and 70% feel anxious about their careers and the state of the world. In this context, the bizarre, low-stakes world of brain rot content offers a temporary reprieve from overwhelming reality. It stops the thinking, quiets the anxiety, and, fills the silence. There's also a powerful social element at play here. Memes, trends, and viral videos have become the new cultural currency. Being in on the joke is a way to feel connected and part of a community, even if that community is vast and anonymous. Yet, despite being the most digitally connected generation in history, Gen Z also reports the highest levels of loneliness and isolation. Sharing and referencing this content creates a shared language, a set of cultural touchstones that, in a way, bind people together. If you don't understand the latest TikTok sound or meme format, you risk feeling left out, like you're on the outside of a conversation that everyone else is having. The very design of the content is also deeply rooted in human psychology. Our brains are hardwired to pay attention to novelty, surprise, and movement. Brain rot content delivers all of this in spades. The videos are short, ensuring you never get bored. They're often visually jarring or absurd, which triggers a surprise response that grabs your attention. The rapid-fire pace of the scroll creates a casino-like effect, with each swipe of the thumb being a pull of the lever, promising a new, potentially rewarding piece of content. It's a perfectly crafted loop of intermittent reinforcement that is honestly incredibly difficult to break. Furthermore, there's a historical precedent for turning to the absurd in times of turmoil. Art movements like Dadaism back in the early 20th century responded to the trauma and irrationality of World War I with art that was deliberately nonsensical and chaotic. However, there is a key difference. Dadaism was a conscious critique of a world that had lost its mind. Much of today's brainrot, though, lacks this critical depth. It's not a commentary on absurdity. It is simply absurdity for its own sake, created not to make a point, but to capture a fleeting moment of our attention before we scroll to the next thing. The spread of brainrot isn't just a matter of user preference. It's also driven by powerful economic and technological forces. At the heart of it all is the attention economy. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube make their money primarily through advertising. Their fundamental business model is to keep you on their app for as long as possible, showing you as many ads as they can. The algorithm, the complex system that decides what video you see next, is not optimized for your well-being or intellectual growth. It is optimized for one thing and one thing only: engagement. It learns what holds your gaze and gives you more of it. This system naturally favors content that is immediately gratifying and requires little cognitive load. A short, shocking, or funny clip is far more likely to get a quick like or be watched to completion than a nuanced 10-minute educational video. As a result, creators are incentivized to produce content that feeds the algorithm's appetite. They are not necessarily trying to make low-quality material. They are simply responding to the rewards of the system. The platform's metrics dictate that more views, more likes, and more shares lead to more visibility and more potential revenue, creating a race to the bottom in terms of content quality. The recent explosion of generative AI has thrown gasoline on this fire. It is now possible to mass-produce low-quality content, or AI slop, at an incredible speed and for virtually no cost. Creators can use AI to generate endless variations of viral video formats, create bizarre animated characters, or even dub existing videos with computer-generated voices. This, in turn, floods the platforms with a tidal wave of derivative, unoriginal content, making it even harder for thoughtful, high-effort creations to be discovered. The machine is now not only recommending the content, but also creating it, accelerating the cycle of mediocrity. This creates a new kind of digital divide. Those with the financial means can often pay for premium ad-free versions of services, giving them more control over the content they consume and helping them avoid the worst of the sludge. However, those who cannot afford these subscriptions are left to navigate the free versions of these platforms, where they are relentlessly targeted with the most addictive, low-quality content designed to maximize ad revenue. In this way, brainrot becomes not just a cultural issue, but an economic one, disproportionately affecting those with fewer resources. Amidst the bleak landscape of brainrot, it's easy to feel pessimistic about the future of deep engagement and critical thought. However, there are significant and hopeful signs that the battle is not lost, particularly when it comes to the timeless act of reading. The very platform that is often blamed for shortening attention spans, TikTok, has also given rise to a powerful counter-movement. The BookTok phenomenon has become a global force, with creators passionately recommending books, discussing plot points, and sharing their emotional reactions to stories. This has had a measurable impact on book sales, catapulting new and old titles onto bestseller lists, and proving that young people are still hungry for long-form narrative. This renewed interest in reading is not just an online trend, it's reflected in the real world. In the Arab world, for example, book fairs are drawing record-breaking crowds that rival major international sporting events. The Cairo International Book Fair attracts an astonishing 5.5 million visitors annually. The Sharjah International Book Fair sees around 2 million attendees, and the Riyadh International Book Fair in 2024 welcomed over 1 million book lovers. These are not just places to buy books. They are vibrant cultural events where people gather to celebrate literature, ideas, and the shared experience of reading. Furthermore, ambitious initiatives are actively working to cultivate a love of reading in the next generation. A prime example is the Arab Reading Challenge, a project by the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Global Initiatives. This program encourages school students across the Arab world to read 50 books a year. What started with 3.5 million participants in 2015 has grown exponentially, reaching a staggering 32 million students from 20 different countries by 2025. This initiative is a powerful testament to the fact that, when given the opportunity and encouragement, young people will embrace the profound rewards of reading. These counter-trends show that the human desire for meaning, depth, and story is resilient. While the allure of the quick, easy dopamine hit from social media is strong, it seems it cannot fully replace the deep, lasting satisfaction that comes from getting lost in a good book. It suggests that brain rot is not an inevitability, but a choice. People, especially young people, are demonstrating that it is possible to exist in the digital world while also actively choosing to engage in habits that nourish the mind rather than simply numb it. The page, it seems, can still win against the scroll. Recognizing the problem of brain rot is the first step, but actively combating it requires a conscious effort to change our digital habits. The most powerful antidote is to be deliberate about what you consume. This doesn't mean you have to delete all your social media apps and live in a cabin in the woods. It simply means shifting from passive consumption to active engagement. Instead of letting the algorithm decide what you see next, make a choice. Follow creators who teach you something new, who challenge your perspective, or who create beautiful, thoughtful art. Curate your feed to be a source of inspiration and knowledge, not just empty stimulation. One of the most practical steps you can take is to set clear boundaries for your screen time. Use the built-in features on your phone to track your usage and set daily limits for specific apps. Designate no-phone zones in your home, such as the dinner table or the bedroom, to create spaces for conversation and rest. It can also be incredibly effective to schedule your scrolling time. Instead of pulling your phone out whenever you have a spare moment, allocate a specific block of time, say 20 minutes after work, to catch up on your feeds. This puts you back in control, turning what was a compulsive habit into an intentional activity. It is also crucial to rediscover the joy of hobbies that don't involve a screen. The key is to find activities that require focus and offer a sense of accomplishment, providing a more sustainable form of dopamine than a viral video. This could be reading a book, as we've discussed, but it could also be learning to play a musical instrument, gardening, painting, cooking a complex recipe, or going for a long walk in nature. These activities engage your brain and body in a holistic way, building new skills and neural pathways, and reminding you that satisfaction can be earned through effort, not just consumed through a screen. Finally, practice mindfulness in your daily life. This simply means paying attention to the present moment without judgment. When you find yourself mindlessly scrolling, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, why am I doing this? How is this making me feel? Often the simple act of checking in with yourself is enough to break the trance. By being more aware of your mental and emotional state, you can begin to identify the triggers that lead you down the rabbit hole of brain rot and make a conscious choice to do something more fulfilling instead. Your brain is a muscle. The more you exercise it with challenging and meaningful input, the stronger and healthier it will become. We find ourselves at a peculiar crossroads in our digital evolution. We have built a world of infinite information, a universe of knowledge and connection accessible from a small glass rectangle in our pocket. Yet within this marvel of technology, we have also created a powerful engine for our own mental decline. Brain rot is more than just a catchy phrase. It is a diagnosis of our time, a warning sign that the constant glare of our screens might be dimming the light within our own minds. The endless scroll, filled with its bizarre, repetitive, and intellectually vacant content, is rewiring our brains for distraction, impatience, and shallow engagement. The allure of this content is undeniable. It offers a potent escape from a world that often feels overwhelming. a simple and immediate hit of dopamine that requires nothing from us in return. The economic incentives of the attention economy and the rise of generative AI have only accelerated this trend, flooding our feeds with a sludge of low-quality material designed to hold us captive. We've seen how this can warp an individual's worldview, blurring the lines between irony and reality, and how it can prey on the most vulnerable, including our children. It's a system that, if left unchecked, prioritizes passive consumption over active thought. However, the story does not have to end here. The resilience of reading, the thriving communities on Book Talk, the massive crowds at book fairs, and the success of initiatives like the Arab Reading Challenge all prove that the human appetite for depth, narrative, and meaning remains strong. We are not merely passive victims of an algorithm. We have agency. We have the power to curate our digital diets, to set boundaries, and to rediscover the profound satisfaction of activities that challenge and nourish our minds. The choice between the fleeting pleasure of the scroll and the lasting enrichment of a book is one we make every day. Ultimately, navigating the modern world requires a new kind of literacy, a digital mindfulness. It requires us to be conscious consumers of information, to question what we are feeding our brains and why. We must ask ourselves if our time online is making us more curious, more knowledgeable, and more connected in a meaningful way, or if it is simply leaving us feeling drained and empty. The path away from brain rot is not about rejecting technology, but about using it with intention. It is about choosing growth over glare, substance over spectacle, and consciously building a mental life that is rich, deep, and resilient.